For the latest news and updates on Tibet, subscribe to Yarloon YouTube channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell icon.
Hello, hello, hello. Hello! Does the sound good enough? You can hear this? All right, great. First of all, I am amazed at seeing all of you here. I had no idea this kind of extraordinary thing was happening. And of course, I was very happy when I heard that there was a process that you all had to go through to get here. And you had to prove on some level that you were, yeah, that's better. Is that okay? On some level, you had to prove that you were very special. I think there were like hundreds and hundreds of people who wanted to come here. And so this is the cream of the cream in this room right now. And that's something that you can be very proud of, but I think it's also a very special responsibility, isn't it? You were selected because of your potential. You were selected for your intelligence. You were selected for your wisdom. You were selected for your skill. This world that we're all in of trying to help our brothers and sisters in Tibet, and it's really, we're focused on inside of Tibet, aren't we? All of us are finding a way to live pretty well outside. But the focus of our attention, the focus of the best of who we are is to help those inside Tibet. When the announcement from His Holiness was made yesterday morning, and there was some discussion after that amongst the lamas and monks who were there, and the press was actually told to go away, and there was a little discussion after that. And I was amazed at how many of the lamas wanted to speak, and they said, look, we're in a very extraordinary situation now. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who's turning 90 in a few days, this extraordinary Tenzin Gyatso, Dalai Lama, he doesn't belong just to Tibet anymore. He belongs to the world. And I would extend that and I would say this extraordinary culture of Tibet doesn't just belong to Tibet anymore. It belongs to the world. And it's a jewel. My son is with me, who's your age, he's 25 years old. And this is the second time he's been to Dharamsala. And every time he comes, of course, he's more saturated with this process of the Tibetan culture, the Tibetan world, the Tibetan point of view, the maturity of Tibetan culture that has evolved over these last almost 1,500 years since Padmasambhava came. This is a huge responsibility, and it's not for the faint of heart. It's for lions and tigers. It's not for a refugee community. It's for successful people who have the same motivation as His Holiness, for all sentient beings. And that's the beauty of this culture. I mean, when we were doing the Korah yesterday morning, and my son was asking about Om Mani Padme Hum. So what does it mean? Well, I said, well, literally, it's a jewel in the lotus. I said, well, what is the meaning beyond that? Well, I said, it's Buddha nature inside of our mental streams, and that we want to bring that out. In many ways, this Tibetan culture is the jewel in the lotus flower of this planet. And I, for one, I want to see this jewel emerge everywhere. The lessons that you have all learned in this culture, how to live together, how to embrace each other, all beings. This is way beyond politics. It's way beyond nationhood. This is universal, even beyond the concepts of something like universal. No center, no boundaries. The essence of what you guys are standing for and bringing into the world. Now, as incredible messengers of that, that's a huge responsibility. And I don't think anyone would ever downplay that. But what an extraordinary challenge. You know, I remember the first time that I met a Tibetan community was outside of Pokhara in Nepal. And I literally wandered into a Tibetan refugee camp. And I felt like I had walked through a magical door into a different reality structure. And most of the people there were not highly educated. They were refugees and come from old Tibet, a different system, a different idea of happiness, a different idea of what's of value. But you could feel it palpably that this other way of living was something that needed to be shared. It was possible to live this way. And that's what I think you can never forget, is this isn't only a political problem we're dealing with. It's not only the survival of Tibet. This incredible jewel is the survival mechanism of everyone on this planet. And you are the vanguard of that. This is fresh. It's not the old people. This is a fresh experiment, the Tibetan experiment. And you are the young people who have the energy to drive it forward. Now, how amazing, since this tragedy that you befelt, you've gone into exile. His Holiness has been in exile since 1959. But the extraordinary thing is you've all ended up around the world because of that. I think there's something magical in that process that maybe the 13th saw was coming. And the 14th was now the active agent for that, of how does this Tibetan thing come into the world? And you are the agents of that. You're the messengers of that. You're the holders of that. To do that, you have to have extraordinary wisdom and compassion, strength, power, skill, capacity. That Vajrapani side of all of you, of all of us. Now, when I started working on Tibet, I was quite shy, actually, and it was very difficult for me to come out and talk, and I wanted to, but it was a learning process. And I found that the more I took my practice seriously, my Buddhist practice, that the more a kind of a natural shyness and self-consciousness went away. And I was being driven by this extraordinary commitment, need, desire to help people. And the mechanism of that was the Tibetan issue, which held all these other possibilities. But it was very important to see it as larger than the small idea of Tibet. And His Holiness talks about this constantly. He's always talked about this. Of course, we want to help the people in Tibet. And that's a prime agenda here. But it's really our engagement with the world, with the essence of what your culture is. And most of you, I don't know, most of the kids here are not first generation. They're mostly second generation, even third generation outside of Tibet, correct? So you really hold these two passports, the passports into the past and a passport into the future in an extraordinary way. I'm excited for all of you as beginning this adult part of your life, and how are you going to make it meaningful? Something special, something you're proud of, something your kids will be proud of. Someone asked me recently, so I'm an old guy. I'm 75 years now. So they say, so, what are you going to feel like on your deathbed? And I said, I'm not going to be thinking about movies, for sure. And I said, I really would like my kids to be proud of me, that I had done something meaningful in the world. And the conduit of me doing something meaningful in the world has really been through His Holiness, through the Tibetan cause, through the visionary possibilities of Tibetan culture. What an amazing opportunity you all have. I know what I'd love to do is, if we have time, if anyone wants to ask me a specific kind of question of maybe how we've done our advocacy work in Washington, in Europe, elsewhere, and you got specific questions about me, I've come from a particular place where I'm a somewhat famous movie star, so I have a different kind of access. But on a human level, it's the same kind of thing that I do that you will be doing as well, is connecting with other people, connecting with other power structures. How do you do that and keep it genuine? How can you do that and do it as a gift and not need the response? I remember the first time I went to the office of Tibet in New York, and I was kind of curious, and I was wandering around, and Tenzin Tetong was running the office in New York. And all I remember was he gave me about 10 books. Didn't ask for anything. He said, here, maybe you'd like this, read this. When you have time, maybe that. We're always here, come back and see us. And of course, I wanted to come back because of the generosity of spirit there. There was no hard sell, and it wasn't asking for money, it wasn't asking for anything. But in the process, I have given everything back that I have.